Hello everybody. Welcome back to Mia Bella ASMR. It's good to have you here. Today I wanted to show you guys one of my favorite paintings. I have it here with me. I printed it out at work using my works printer, so that's probably not allowed. So don't tell my boss. Got it upside down. So this is the painting. It's Lemminkäinen's mother. It's a finished painting by Akseli Gallen-Kallela. I think I said it right. And it's one of my favorite paintings ever. I'll show it to you up close without the glare. So it's from a story from the Gallen-Kallela, which is a collection of poems, of stories and myths from around Finland. And this particular painting depicts Lemminkäinen, who is lying down, and his mother, who is sitting in front of him. And the story goes that Lemminkäinen has been on a journey and he's tried to kill the swan of death, who is hiding out in the corner here, very ominous. And he's failed and he's drowned in the river of death, or the river of the underworld. And his mother, who has been very far away, she sees a sign that makes her think that her son is in trouble, and so she travels far and wide to find him. She asks for help from many different people and beings, and eventually she finds out that her son is drowned in the river of death, and she takes a rake and she dredges the river, and she finds all the dismembered parts of her son's body, and she sews him back together on the shore of the river. You can see all the tools here that she's used to sew him back together. She's tried everything, but he is still dead. He has not come to life. She's tried every ointment and every spell and everything that she knows, but she can't bring him back to life. And so she enlists the help of a single bee. You can't even really see it. I think it's too... There's a tiny little dot right there, and that's the bee. And she sends this bee up to the heavens to get the nectar of the gods, and that's the only thing that will bring her son back to life. And so in the midst of all this darkness, she's done everything she can. The only bit of hope she has is this tiny little bee who has to fly all the way to the heaven and back and bring her son this nectar of life. And this painting depicts the moment in which she's looking up towards the heavens and she's waiting for that bee. And you can see the rays of sun coming up from the heaven, but they seem very small and feeble against the darkness of the river behind them, and the stones of blood red. So I think it's a beautiful depiction of, yes, a mother's love for her son, but for the courage and strength that she has to hold on to that little bit of hope when she's in a moment where she is now helpless and powerless to do anything else about the situation. She's done everything she can, and now it is up to, it's up to fate. And in some versions of the story, she is able to bring her son back to life. The bee comes back, and she revives him. And in some versions, he doesn't make it, and he is forever kept in the underworld. So I thought a lot about this painting when I went through something quite difficult recently, and I had a lot of fear, and I had almost no hope that things would be okay. But I remembered this painting, and I remembered that Lemminkäinen's mother, even though she was in such a dark, dismal situation, she had that one little bee, and she had that much hope. So yeah, I think that's a very beautiful painting, and it means a lot to me. I think that art is very important when we're going through big things in life. Sometimes art is the thing that helps us get through the most, because we need symbolism and stories as humans, I think. So that was the painting. And perhaps we should light a candle. Light is a very common symbol of hope. And another thing I was thinking about in relation to hope was this book that I read in year 13, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It is my least favorite book of all time. I hated it so much. It was the worst. Sorry if you're a Cormac McCarthy fan. I don't know why, but you're wrong. Just kidding. But the premise of the story is that it's like a post-apocalyptic world. Everything's grey, there's no light, there's no hope, there's nothing. It's barren wasteland, and the remaining people who haven't died yet are mostly cannibals, and it's bleak. It's very bleak. And the story centers on a father and his son who is very young, I think about 5 years old, if I recall correctly, but definitely like a fairly young child, and the father and the son walk along this road, in this barren land that has a lot of, there's just nothing going for them. They're starving to death. They're cold. They have no joy. The 5-year-old boy, he was basically born when the apocalypse happened, so he's never known a life other than this. And people usually interpret the story as this father's love for his child, and how despite everything they stay together and they have these moments of love together despite the horrible situation. And I didn't buy that for a second. My interpretation of the story was that the father was insane and he was keeping his son alive in literal torture conditions. Like, they literally carried around guns with them so that they could kill themselves if they ended up getting captured by the cannibals. And overall, there was just no joy in this story, in my opinion. There were the best day of the 5-year-old boy's entire life was when they came across a can of Coke, and he got to drink a can of Coke. How wonderful. So I got extremely pissed off that this father would keep his son alive through, again, starvation. His son was starving to death. They were walking along this miserable road. Everything is grey. And the best day of this kid's life was when he got to drink a singular can of Coke, because he was starving and hadn't had sugar for like years. And I thought it was horrible. And the kid's mother had killed herself a couple of years earlier, I think, in the story. And she was kind of portrayed as being like weak, like, oh, she couldn't handle it, like she made the decision to leave rather than to stick it out. And I'm like, no, like, I feel like that was a perfectly reasonable option given the horrible circumstances they were in. And I think it was in fact a incredibly cruel thing to keep your son alive through all that. So that book made me very mad. Did not like it at all. But I found myself thinking about it again, and I think the father and the son, they do hold on to hope, and the story talks about that. Despite how bleak things are, they hold on to hope. And at the end, some kind of fantastical thing happens that, like, they're saved or whatever, which, again, I wasn't a fan of. It just felt like a delusion that the father's like this religious nut job, and he's like, oh my gosh, my kid is Jesus. Like, it's this whole thing. I wasn't into it at all. But anyway, you could interpret it as like there was basically no hope, but they kept going anyway, even though they felt like there was no hope, and they were saved at the end. And I do think about that now, and I maybe reconsider. I would not reread the book, but perhaps I would have a different opinion now. Just have with that idea of, I think that humans can be very, or at least me, I look at the worst case scenario and I assume that the worst is going to happen. And in times in my life where things are tough, I find it very hard to hold on to hope, and I think that the worst case scenario is definitely going to happen, and it's difficult to stay strong and to have courage and hope that things will get better. So perhaps I should reconsider my thoughts on The Road by Cormac McCarthy. We tend to catastrophize, I think. There are so many times. I remember when I was studying, I genuinely believed that I was going to fail just about every single paper that I ever took. Every single time I thought, this time I'm not going to make it. This time I'm going to fail the paper. Everything is terrible and this is it. And do you know what? I passed every single paper that I took. I think I only, like in terms of assignments, I think I only failed like 1 or 2 tests in my years of study. So I was wrong about things being terrible. And I think we often are wrong about things being terrible. We think things are more hopeless than they are. And I think it's important to have faith and hope in that one little bee. Even if everything else seems dark and scary, there is always something, even if it's such a tiny bit of hope, there's always a little bit that you can find, that you can hold on to. So, yeah. Sorry, I will light the candle now. There we go. So that was kind of all that I had for today. I hope that if you are ever in a difficult situation, you can have hope. Even when it seems like there is none to be had, there is always a little bit. Even if it feels like you're being a bit delusional, I promise there is hope. There's a lot more than you can see or than you can feel. I will let you guys go now. I hope that you have a wonderful day or night, whenever you're watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.